Welcome to You and Your Pets. I'm Jim Horton, and I'm here with our resident expert, Dr. Ernest Rogers of the Maplewood Animal Hospital. And we discuss a broad range of subjects related to pets and pet health on this program. I'd like to focus this time, though, on animal jobs and becoming a veterinarian. Tell me, what are the reasons one might want to work with animals?
Well, one of the big reasons is because we like our animals. Pets, other people's pets, seem to interact well with humans. There's a good human-animal bond that exists. Some people are afraid of animals. Most people are able to work with them. So really, the perception is that you go in and you get puppies and you get kittens and you get to play with them and make them better when they're sick. And that's one of the reasons. Other people get involved in other areas, and sometimes they just want to learn about animals. They become zoologists and biologists. Other times they want to deal with the science, and veterinary medicine is an excellent precursor to going into science. But I think the reason why we should address this issue now is I've had quite a few young people come into the hospital and say, so I want to be a veterinarian, and usually they're 10, 12, sometimes seniors in high school. And they're interested in becoming a veterinarian but have no real grasp of what steps are necessary or what alternatives to that career might exist. So that's why I thought this would be a good subject for tonight.
Okay. What are the common misconceptions about working with animals? I'm sure you see a lot of them on a day-to-day basis.
Animals are great, and 90% of my animals are just super. There are cats that come in that want to take my face off. And they will do it. They will have no hesitation in attacking you and ripping you up with their claws. And a mad cat is like a buzzsaw. There's no place you can grab it. It has 4 feet and a mouthful of teeth. And each of those feet have razor-sharp claws. So one of the things that we don't want people to think is that all animals are good. Whether you're working in a veterinary hospital or whether you're working in a zoo, and I've done both. Working in a zoo, that cute lion that looks really nice, you don't walk up to him because many people have tried that and they get killed. Wild animals are wild, so another myth is that because we see on TV occasionally a lion or a bear that gets along with its owner or its trainer, everything's just cool and I can go work as a trainer or a wildlife trainer or as a zookeeper, and it'll be okay if I go in because the lion knows me now and it's never had a problem. And then another real misconception is that when we have sick animals, we can cure them all. And we find animals that sometimes have cancer that we can't cure or have diseases that we can't cure. But in most cases, veterinary medicine is sophisticated enough to help most animals. But unfortunately, not all of them. We can't help all of them. That's another misconception. We can't help all of them. We do the best, but we can't help all of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what are the steps to working with animals?
Well, if you really want to work with animals, you have to decide how you want to work with them. Do you want to do work like I do and see them in the hospital, examine them, do x-rays and blood work? And a lot of people feel that's what they want to do. I want to be a veterinarian. I want to be a doctor. And even though that's a good place to be, and I wouldn't trade it for any other thing, there are other things that you can do. Certainly, as we discussed, working in a zoo, canine officer, canine police officer. And we just saw recently in Paris how one of the canines gave his life to protect his officer.
Diesel was his name.
Diesel was his name, right?
Yes.
And he was exactly like my dog, Mishka. He was a Belgian Shepherd. Mm-hmm. We have people who do meat inspection. And though that's the other side of the coin of keeping them alive, a lot of our meat has to be inspected by veterinarians. Our fish, our seafood have to be inspected by veterinarians for diseases that might be carried by these animals. So there's that side. Also, you can be involved in something like research, as we discussed. And that research can be anything from microbiology right through to anatomy and physiology. And so those are opportunities for people who maybe don't want to be a veterinarian or want to be a veterinarian but haven't looked at the full scope of what they can do as a student.
So what are some of the job titles of people who work with animals regularly? I know you gave me just a lot of them here, but I mean, are there explicit job titles that means that this person is going to be working with animals for his career?
Sure. Canine officer is a big one. You always see that, and especially now in the wake of 911 and in the recent terrorist events, you see an awful lot of dogs out there. So canine officer is one. Another one can be zoo educator or animal educator. A lot of these people are in zoos or working with shelters, and they're educating people about how to properly take care of their animals. Another one is simply a biologist. You can be a wildlife biologist. And a lot of wildlife biologists are doing what I enjoy doing, tramping through the woods, looking for animals, finding out how many we have. Are they sick? Do they have good food source? What is the food source? And a lot of that involves tramping through the woods. Forest rangers do it, but wildlife biologists do it also. Other options are things such as being a keeper or an assistant to a veterinarian. So you can be an assistant to a veterinarian, which I like to consider as less technical than being an animal health technician. Both are assisting veterinarians. The assistant might hold for blood, the veterinary technician might take blood. The assistant might walk the animal to the cage, the veterinary technician might start anesthesia. So it's different levels of technical skill. Beyond that, you have people who are involved in animal keeping, both as lab animals, because we have a number of labs that use different kinds of animals. None of these animals necessarily have to be killed, but you might take blood from them on a different schedule to ensure that a drug you've given them is floating through the body in a proper way. These animals don't get killed, they just get the blood taken. So you can work as a lab animal assistant. And there are other things that you can certainly do. Certainly humane police is one of the more fanciful or more explicit jobs where, as a humane police officer, you usually work with an animal rescue group or the Humane Police. The New Jersey State SPCA is one of those groups where they train individuals to become police officers to enforce the code that stops animal abuse. And these are people who have the same powers and same rights as any other police officer, but they're specifically trained to look for animal abuse, investigate animal abuse, and that's another area to be in.
Okay. Are there requirements to working in the animal arena?
Yeah, depends on what you want to do. Most positions, except for kennel people, most positions are not entry-level positions. But certainly, you can be a receptionist. You can come and work at a hospital as a receptionist and then move on to whatever else you want to do in that hospital. But whether you're a technician or an animal assistant, it requires some education. Clearly, as a veterinarian, you not only have to do, and this is the focus, I guess, of this program, not only do you have to do your undergraduate courses, first you have to graduate from high school, of course, then you have to go on and do your undergraduate courses. Many people do a 4-year course, but some get in as early as after 2 or 3 years. And then you have 4 years of professional school where your focus is going to be on getting your physiology, your anatomy, your pharmacology. And it's a fairly rigorous process. Not everyone makes it. And in my class, in the first year, we lost 14 people. So it's very rigorous, and you have to be up to studying and learning. In other areas, such as biology and zoology, a lot of people get PhDs in those areas so that they can be at the top of their field doing the research that they want to do. For something like a kennel person, you may get on-the-job training. An animal control officer, animal control investigator, humane police officer, all have training in the area in New Jersey of Title IV, which is a group of laws that address animal abuse. So, depending on what you want to do, your training can be anywhere from 6 months if you're an animal control officer, a couple of months to 6 months if you're an animal control officer, anywhere from 2 to 4 years if you're an animal technician, and certainly between 6 and 10 years if you want to be a veterinarian. And then it depends on whether you want to specialize after you finish veterinary medicine.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you, what professions did you consider before you became a veterinarian?
Well, as you knew, I grew up in Canada, and I was disgruntled about university life. I didn't think I was getting options that I should have had. So I sort of wandered down the street, and because I was in Canada, the RCMP, or Royal Canadian Mounted Police, were sat right there, the little recruiting office. So I walked into the recruiting office and I said, I want to be a canine officer. And the guy looked at me, he says, oh, that's great, come on in, let's talk. Well, by the time he was finished, I figured out I'd have to put 6 to 8 years as a police officer before I'd even be considered for a canine group. And I said, whoa, 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 I can go to vet school and be a veterinarian in 10 years. So thank you very much. But I've done research involving animals. I've been involved in one of the more interesting ways I worked with animals was as a therapy dog. I had one of the first therapy dogs in North America. This was back in 1988. And we used to go to the VA hospital at Tuskegee University, that infamous hospital where they did all those horrible experiments on people. And we had some breakthroughs. We had people who hadn't talked in 25 years, put the cat on the table, and this guy who hadn't talked in 25 years went, here, kitty, kitty. What a great feeling. The human-animal bond lives with animal therapy. So that's another area you can get involved in. And you don't need as much education for yourself as sensitivity, but you do need education for your dog or your cat or your rabbit or your cow. They do bring cows in too.
Now, you have a PhD also, is that not correct?
That's true. Most veterinarians do not have PhDs. I happen to be interested enough in the area of toxicology and pharmacology, or the use of drugs and the effects of poisons, excuse me, and so I went on to do a PhD after my veterinary degree. Some veterinarians choose to specialize, and as a veterinarian we can specialize in anesthesia, neurology, internal medicine, surgery, large animal internal medicine, ophthalmology, or the study of the eyes, cardiology, the study of the heart, neurology, study of the nerves. And so there are a lot of opportunities once you get your veterinary degree to move on and do some kind of specialization. I just happen to do a PhD, but your PhD can be in any area.
Okay. Well, what is the educational process to becoming a general veterinarian? How many years again is it?
Well, the minimum number of years would probably be 6 if you could do your first 2 undergraduate years and be at the top of your class with a good GPA and you have good background. Probably six years minimum. 10 years is usually the case if you want to specialize or do something after your veterinary degree.
Boy.
It can be challenging,
Yes,
and it's
it
not
can.
something you take on lightly, because after 10 years, if you don't like what you're doing, you're sort of stuck. I mean, you can turn around and go into law, but it is a bit of a challenge once you've expanded that much energy, and it is a lot of energy.
Yes, it certainly sounds like it.
More people get in than get out. And it's harder to get out than it is to get in. So,
Okay. Well, we're going to have to take a break, but when we come right back from the break, we'll discuss this some more. I'm Jim Horton, and this is You and Your Pets. We'll be right back.
Television is a powerful and influential medium that allows different groups the opportunity to produce programming that directly affects their own communities. Public, educational, and government access channels ensure that all people, regardless of race, age, gender, disability, religion, or economic status, have access to local government information and the use of a public communication forum. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Welcome back to You and Your Pets. I'm Jim Horton, and we're here with our resident expert, Dr. Ernest Rogers of the Maplewood Animal Hospital. And we've been discussing what it takes to become someone who works with animals. And I'd like to turn now to the subjects that one needs to know in both undergrad and medical school to become a veterinarian. What are the broad subject ranges you've got to master?
well, a lot of people come to me when they're in high school. If they come to me when they're a senior, they either have the courses or they don't. But some of the courses that people look at if you're going into a science field, particularly if you're going to do a Bachelor of Science leading to veterinary medicine, pre-vet or pre-med or pre-dentistry, one of the big things that college recruiters look for is, do you have a strong background in some biological or physiological study? So by taking chemistry, as much chemistry as you can, and doing as well as you can. Biology, same thing. Physics. Those are the three most important subjects when they're looking to see if you can fit into a science program. After that, one has to be able to communicate. If you can't communicate, no matter how good your science is, you can't get it out there. So whether you're a veterinarian, a researcher, a zoologist, you have to write reports. Even if you're a forensic veterinarian, is what I do, you have to write reports and you have to be able to communicate with other people. Very important. So having a good literature background, having a good English background are all important at the high school level. And then after that, it's blossoming out and deciding what is best for you as a person. Certainly, it's important to have good math skills, and it's also very important to have, I don't want to say a flourish, but some kind of artistic, creative part to you, because a lot of this is going to be abstract thinking. It's not that medicine is abstract thinking, but sometimes you got to think out of the box, and to be able to do that is always very good. So once you're out of high school, your grades are good, and by good I mean some veterinary schools, depending on the year, will take you with a GPA as low as 2.7, 2.8 out of 4. Mm-hmm. And it just depends on the year. Some years are very, very competitive. Other years are not so competitive. But you're not likely to get accepted into a veterinary school in North America with anything less than a 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. Some universities like Cornell, they don't even give you an interview. They just look at your grades. So they're looking at people with 3.5, 3.6, 3.9, 4.0s. So those are some of the things that they're looking at. Now those are based on your undergraduate courses. Now undergraduate, they want to see that you can carry a full load. Veterinary school first year involves anatomy, physiology, microbiology, pharmacology. By the time you're finished, you have all these ologies under your belt, but you're probably in class 6 to 12 hours, and for each hour of class, you're studying 2 or 3 hours. So by the time you're finished at the end of the first year, you've probably spent 12 to 14 hours a day studying and in class. And that doesn't involve any of the medical things that you might be interested in beyond helping a veterinarian here, working there, working in an office. So your courses in your undergrad have to reflect the fact that you can handle a very rigorous schedule. So taking a course about pen mechanics along with one biology and literature course, even if you have straight 4.0, they aren't going to look at that favorably because you haven't shown you can take the rigors of 2 or 3 biology courses, 2 or 3 science courses, along with another couple of courses, and be successful at all of them. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the big things in undergrad. You have to be able to ramp yourself up. Now going from undergrad to veterinary medicine, you clearly have requirements, and every school in the nation has basic requirements of biology, physics, chemistry. They would like you to have some kind of physiology. They would like you to have some kind of advanced biochemistry. And then after that, it depends on the individual college. Mm-hmm. Some of them will require calculus. Some of them will require some kind of advanced math. And then once you've completed, that usually takes 2 years of undergraduate education. Once you've completed your 2 years of undergraduate education and your GPA is good and you have a good background, in other words, you haven't only studied, then you go on to medical school. Medical school is the same thing all over again: anatomy, physiology, biology, microbiology, on and on and on. There are some courses like professional development courses which aren't as rigorous, but you have 4 years of very rigorous training. And in my view, first year was hard. Second year was harder. Third year was even harder. And fourth year, they sort of get you into the clinic, so you're doing more of what you want, so it seems easier. but your responsibilities are greater. So that's the course to get into veterinary medicine. Now, if you want to do zoology, biology, still the same undergraduate, and then apply for graduate school where you might do a master's or a PhD after that. As a veterinary technician, you can go to a college, and Bergen County has a course, for instance, and I think it's a 4-year course, but they make you do 1 or maybe 2 years at the college before you can even apply for veterinary technology. So, and that, again, to show that you have the understanding. Now, as we step back from all that, all the academics, you also have to have an understanding of what animals are about. It's good to get experience in a kennel, in a shelter, in working for a veterinarian, so that you know that, oh, that dog doesn't look safe, or that horse is going to come after me. So you get a feeling to be around animals. I've seen many veterinary students who get into veterinary medicine, they're afraid to handle the animals because they really don't have a sense of what they're dealing with. So beyond the academics, you have to have some education in handling animals, knowing about animals, working with animals. And that's also important.
Where do you get the time to do that, given the course schedule that you have? I mean, there's only so much time in a day, and if you're working 12 to 14 hours...
Well, that's in medical school. In undergraduate, you might only be 10 hours or 30 hours a week or so in undergrad, and that's when you're developing all these skills.
Okay.
In medical school, they want you to hit the books. In the first year, you can work with animals, but you better find time. And at least where I went to school, I went to medical school at Tuskegee University in Alabama, and if you got 2 Ds in your first year, you were out.
Wow.
That's how we lost 14 kids. And then going from first year to second year, the class ahead of us, 14 dropped out, and they moved them back in our year. Going from second to third year, we lost 1, and then going once you're through third year, you're basically going to be a veterinarian.
I'm deeply impressed. I'm also happy that I'm not a veterinarian.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter. If you want to be an architect is 5 years academic plus 5 years as an intern, and then maybe you can write your license.
Yeah.
So architects, lawyers, anything you want to do, and that's the important thing, you have to want to do it. If you want to do it, you'll do it, no matter how hard it is.
Right. Tell me, what is required to be an animal control officer or an animal control investigator?
Okay, an ACO, control officer, or ACI investigator, both of those require training under the auspices of the state chief law enforcement officer, which is the legal chief law enforcement officer is the I can't remember the name now, but he's the chief law enforcement officer at the government, and what his job is to make sure that all training for all officers are the same. So even an animal control officer, humane police officer, they all go through the same introduction to the laws, the application of the laws, understanding what you can search and how you can search, where you can search and when you can search, and the application of the laws to people. What is cruelty? How do you define it? How do you issue summons? And for humane enforcement officers, how to use a gun, how to use your baton. So they're taught in self-defense as well.
Oh.
But animal control officers basically are working at the municipal level, and they issue summons.
And the investigators working at the state level?
No, the investigator also is working at the municipal level and will investigate.
Okay.
But must involve the NJSPCA or the New Jersey State SPCA as well,
Okay.
who have humane policing.
Okay. Other careers working with animals, including canine law enforcement, a municipal officer, state or federal protection, bomb sniffing, tracking and drug sniffing.
Right.
What does one have to do to be qualified for those jobs?
Well, like I said, I went into the RCMP, and it was 6 to 8 years before I was even going to be considered for a canine officer. It's similar in the United States. Many individuals are officers first. They go through their training as a police officer. They often spend a number of years on the road learning to be a good police officer. And then they might find an interest working with dogs. They then go to school with a dog when their command says that they're good enough. We'll allow them to get a dog. They'll go to school with the dog, learn how to watch the dog, work with the dog. And many of these people have come from dog backgrounds, either because they had dogs or they had previously worked with dogs. And they then, after they're good police officers, they then go on to learn how to work with dogs. Now it depends. Clearly, if you're working with a dog that sniffs for drugs, you have something called an active alert, where the dog scratches where the drugs are. If you're working with a bomb dog, you don't want that. Scratching at a bomb probably isn't the right thing to do. So clearly we have different dogs for different tasks, and tracking and all these different tasks. So the police officer will go on. They have to be certified at least once a year, and I think now it's 2 and 3 times a year, with the dog to show that the dog is active and accurate in its assessment of a track, drugs, or a bomb.
So what about military canine? Does it take that long for dogs that are used in the front?
Well, military canines are slightly different. Military canines can be protection dogs. They're out there not only to address bombs and identify improvised explosive devices, but also they're out there to protect their handlers and whoever's with them. The dog will alert to foreign people. I don't mean foreign in the sense of not American. I mean foreign in the sense of individuals who aren't part of the group of Army people or Navy.
Right.
And so they have to be trained in a slightly different way. They're probably more aggressive, and they have to learn how. They do parachutes. They parachute out of planes, and from what I understand, the dogs love it. They do base inspection and sentry duty. So there's a lot of different aspects to a military dog. But a lot of those military people end up in the police and end up as a canine officer.
That's what I was wondering, whether there was a crossover there.
Yeah, there can be. I mean, a lot of military go into police work anyways.
Right.
So yeah, the canine officer also.
Well, we're almost done. So do you have any closing words about working with animals?
Well, I think the one thing I can really say about working with animals is it's a great profession. Whether you're a canine officer, a veterinarian, a zoologist, an animal educator at a zoo, a kennel person, it's great working with animals. Nothing is going to work for you if that isn't what you really want to do. If you want to do law but you're doing veterinary medicine, it's not going to work. If you want to do be a physician, and you end up in the veterinary medicine, it's not going to work. You have to want to do. And if you want to do it and you're willing to work as hard as you possibly can, you'll do it. So don't give up your dreams. You might have to change from being a veterinarian to being a technician, or a technician to being an animal control officer, but you got to find your own niche and love it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much. This has been most enlightening, and I learned a lot.
And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me at maplewoodah@comcast.net.
Okay, well, that's it. Thank you very much. And this is Jim Horton. Thank you for watching.